Baranjoje, Dunga Dunga, Yodan Dawaranjoje, Simjan Damje, Dunga Me, Yawadan Mida Waranjoje, Simjan Damje, Nerin Jadan Yedanda, Danyam La Ne Baranjoroje, Simjan Damje, Dewadan Deve, Yodan Zembaranjo, Simjan Damje, Dunga Dan Dunga, Yodan Dawaranjo. Simchen Damje Dunga Mebe Dewa Dan Mida Waranjoje Simchen Damje Nyere Jadan Nidan Danyam La Ne Waranjoje O Zajibu Shoje Me Do Dan Re Ro Lin Je Nye De Yen Bo Di San Ye Jin Do Me De Bo Wa Ye do gu nan do jin lo je bar jo yi do guru ri nam and yan dar ya mi in English. Take revenge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in this practice, I stand the step forward for the benefit of all sentient beings. From now, by enlightenment, I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And by the merit created in this practice, I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until now, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the merit created in this treatise, may I attain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sentient beings, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and impulses. May all sentient beings be free. May sentient beings all sentient beings enjoy these causes. May all sentient beings be free from causes. May all sentient beings be separate from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity. Sentient beings enjoy happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings be separated from joy. May all sentient beings be found in all living perfumes, shroud, small, inside the life counters, some eyes, once you get some choice, pure, reading them, Geshe, thank you. Good to see you all. Lessons. Lasso teneta. 정말 테스트를 주저 지티니까 단다 주어이나 단다 지단내가 뛰긴 동안 지단에 야마토도 zambal라 good to see you all good to see you again today the show de zambal라 맞아 지단에 뛰긴 도에 때문에 뭐지 kallo 나한테 나도 좀 붙이게 직 쇼고야 상바당 지단에 소소소소 직 단다 직 우수 탐보대 원념도 내요 받아 직 연결 즉 속에서 반드시 쌓야지 그거 비어야 와 근데 즉 원투야 즉 섬로 투셈 땅 투아이나 야고요레스 지단행도 땅아서 가상한테는 말로 센도 고수번에서 단다벌도 증한서 로기름 발라 창아래 로기름 바디 단다 지단에 로 장도에다 즉 셈빌라 칸디스 자르만자 된데 티와 남기는 용되고래 단다디 지단행도 창야돼 치를로라야 돼 칸디스 임바 되게 로기 롤라야 될 넘버 만다와 간데 요바 간데 연구 요바 다 준속이 여러분이 캠바레 지단에 다 단다 지단에 롤라야 돼 근데 심줄라 간데 장마자 된데 이게 림바도 올라야 즉 셈바 가가요 지단에 다시마 된데 진짜라 치고 티야 다이나 드링에 단다 디디 쉬존 쉬고들라니 단다 로총 세계미 치쇼로크 담보대 즉 쉬고
So when we greet with each another with good to see you again, so on and forth, His Holiness the Dalai Lama often kind of remind us that when you greet, it is good to sort of remind yourself that you are in good and healthy state, and therefore in that state you are capable of engaging in positive deeds as well as collecting virtuous activities. So, the potentials of creating these virtuous activities for yourself would be a good kind of reminding and being in awareness. And we are going through this, the topic on the mind and awareness. And obviously there's along with that comes the questions, how can we integrate, this in our daily life or implement or put into practice? So in our sessions, we introduce generally about, mind or awareness or cognitions and kind of in a brief way. But we can go or move on to later about how we can really kind of implement or integrate this into our daily life. So for this session, Geshe would like to start with the words from the 8 verses of training the mind.
Excuse me, I can barely hear you. Is your microphone?
I don't know. Is this for here or maybe
It's on, but maybe you move it a little bit closer.
it's for?
yeah
Okay.
The buzz of the AC.
yeah okay yeah
No. Sufficient.
어디 제지단에 다 단당에 되다 미스기 고고에 민다 파길라다 단단데 로조 지단에 로종 지게마 단당에 쇼로가 찍데 당보데 찍 쇼고 되는 상이네요 선바레레레레 된데 쇼야기 디페션 쇼게 지단에 로종 지게마 되게 랑리 탈팔라데 숭인바다 공기 지단에 공랑게 찍 라말라야 몰람 소소야 몰람 셴라 로마데솔라야 다직 몰람당 직 로게 림바 간데시 정규여메 된데기 림바지 뭐 몰람도 오시 된데시 송지레도 Okay.
So, Kishla, I would like to start with with the first verse of 8 verses of training the mind, and 8 verses of training the mind, as you know, is composed by Geshe Langtang Thamba, and this is his kind of prayer as well as aspirations for his teacher as well as for the sake of all beings.
어디제 단다 치제 당보 디간라 쇼로 따데 다니 심젠 탐젤라 이진노 볼레라비 던초 투베 삼바이 따도 제반 젬바 쇼스 숭데 스 쇼로가 디게 된다 닝보도 오데 베나 제 되게 실랑리 마타바 타바스 코랑기에니 심젠 탐젤라 미 심젠 탐젤라니 직 아니 이진노 볼레라베즈나 베나간조 이진노 볼레데 삼발라 직 따첨보지나 린타 요겐 직 베나간조기 직 tela chik so malang do ji yawa na khari na tu yo chi dende ji la ngan na gyune ngun na dende ji rimbu chi ri do ji ro ta tela ni chik tele lag ba ni chik ton cho tu be de ton cho tu be samba ki ni ton cho tu be samba ni simjen tamje ge ni ton tu be de tela ni chik ta do ni chik jeban simbar se do samba che de che ni chik sim pa lo ke ne ta chik simjen tamje ge ton da la ni sam lo ke wa de dan da samlo ke sem ke go ya de ne ta solo ka sije tangbo de ge ni ta tengo re sije de gi temba na jin gi tang ta ene ge shi kongi somba na jin ene chi kongi so ma ta ba na jin shenju kongi lo ma pe na ngarang zo tan de lo la chang de be chi nga da nga de so gi de so gi de de gi de la tu sem she tu ba ye na chi pensem kan de yo ma ye ta so nyo wa to ne pe chen di sije de la ko ne ene chi de la samlo tang tu ba ye na pen to chombo da ne ba chombo ye ba 당한 지제되기 고도 그래서 직슈다.
So the very first verse of 8 verses of training the mind with the determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings, which surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem, may I hold them dear at all times. And in essence, what Geshe Langtangpa is making prayer, as well as he is kind of inspiring others to do the same, with the determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings, which surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem. So the thought of benefiting others, as he says here, is surpasses even the wish-fulfilling gem. So when we usually use this wish-fulfilling gem, it refers to gem that satisfy any wishes. And the thought of benefiting all other sentient beings is even more kind of higher than such wish-fulfilling gem. And therefore, kind of, having that kind of understanding, may I hold them dear at all times. And, may I engage in benefiting other sentient beings. So just like he made his own prayers to kind of, generate such thought, we, as ordinary people, should also kind of trying our kind of making our effort to kind of generate such thought and engage in such practices.
어디제 다지다네 상인의 샴바네 다직 초대부터 레레레레 라치는 게 단다 디 로존 체계마게 디슈야라 베전 슈야인 지단데 데 되게 다지다네 간조 로존 세대 삼발라 메인테닝 세대 숭거와 디인디 삼바 단다 로존 체계데 직도르디제 지단네 디 라삼 투셈 셰토바이나 직펜도 갸첨보 요바다 소솔라 펜도 요바 지단네 직 몰람다 딘디기 실라 두기요바 딘데 직 도르디라 된 깨첨보 요바 딘데시 숭레샤 견전 남견 직 델라시 투바이나 야고도
So from next session, I would like to start with 1 verses of from the mind training, 8 verses of mind training, and as we say that it is a mind training. Mind training, it would be beneficial if you kind of reflect on the meaning. Not only kind of beneficial in actual kind of practice, but also it becomes sort of dedication, aspiration, prayers, and this short verse is considered as a very kind of precise, short, yet very comprehensive, and having extensive meaning. So it would be nice to kind of remind yourself often as you can of this, this mind training text.
어디지 되네 다다 뒤 남준경 저 롭센데간 라 트레인 되네 지단이 다 가상 다 ngay tanda lobs di kotsu wane sung tanda pardo tia de chitane lori tun to yewa ta sumdo yewa nitsu yewa sene tendiki ta lobsen di mangbo shi ta nga tsu to de khari na mena ta kantar changa tsu yangyo ngene chunzu tisare yo de ina ta dilaya yangyo nge ta tenso ta la pento chung yo gre si ina ta tanda ta tiring ta digi lori dungi nane ta taman do de chatu do ta tanda di lobsende ene ta chik sheba da Geshe monsu nala mange pa tsu shide ta tren dinala di tengi lobsende na yonge to ta dinala kang yoba na ja ro nga di chine try.
Going back to our regular text of seven fold typology of cognition, and following the text, we kind of went through in brief, seven-fold typology. Then there's three. Then there's two kind of sets fold. And although you have already studied this, about this topic, but hopefully there's a benefit of reminding it again, reviewing it again from Geshe-la's, this teaching. And we are on the sort of last section of the text. And today we'll go through as presented in the text, inferential cognition, subsequent cognition, and direct perception, and then indeterminate indeterminate perception.
어딘지르세 지단이 땅아조 지단이 지켜침보다 띵상보 소소소소 네토바이나 야보레데 데마인바이나 땅아조 띵에만네 킨츠 티사레 지단이 가조 직 돌링도 지단이 쪼바도 타 제브캅수이나 페나 지게 로리든 카레 세트 삼발라 로리든 디데레세 싹 라베요와다 로리든기나네 로리든라야 직 삼바레레레라야 만도와 같이 세트 삼발라 직 ndila diyo yo se de ngetu ba ina ya boyo re se tati.
If you are not, even if not, you are not able to kind of go into detail and more kind of extensive, but at least since you have already studied this topic earlier, at least it would be good to have, these seven memorized if somebody asked you, and further if you know kind of the classifications within those seven, that would be also good.
Dice tene ta tiring de tamu tanda di sheba de resha sheba de indi sambala sheba di ka so tiya ponto tanda di dinang le shuba na jinji da ta pena di khasa ani icho ngebe ta chik tanda di rimba de peje lo ta lori din tanda kondo shya da wado shya ni chidani korim do da mi da tanda lo gyula rimba do tende shi resha ta khasa cheshe de icho de nge sa shula icho nge ba tena jingi tiki ta tela tene ta te temba de ngepa chezang tu zhuwa tela teni kharish kikido sena ene sheba de kikido tanda tena sumpa na jinde kondu sheben dami taba lami be yichu yuldenji kansa tabur kansa tabi yuze yichu yuldenji kansa di dami tabar shende bar temba de shende yobar tende te tenshe yobe gone chegum shutabu cheba tela tene tama khari kikire sena ene chik sheba ki de lodi kiyongure sheba diyan ke tangpo kewa de tomar danzin nyenshi ngosum tabula danzin ngosum yisum tabula tubada thar ene dami tabar tobe na toba di ene chik thardu dendi rogoji sungudwa dina sumba na sheba da.
If you have a book on page 270, number 4 is the inferential cognition. Although the sequence or the order of these 7 is presented in various way, the one that is being presented here is based on how these are generated in kind of in our mind stream, and so inferential cognition comes after. Earlier to that is correct assumption, and correct assumption, and so inferential cognition arises after correct assumption. As the correct assumption becomes more kind of refined, it leads to a rising of the inferential cognition. So so as stated in the text, take the case of someone who has generated within her mind stream a correct assumption, observing that sound is impermanent as described above. When that person, out of desire to know that sound is impermanent, engage in powerful analytical meditation through relying on mindfulness and meta-awareness or introspection, the result is an inferential cognition. So, as you apply more analysis, introspection, mindfulness, that correct assumptions sort of, turns into inferential cognition. And furthermore, it says that such an inference is grounded in perception. In its origin, it is grounded in perceptual auditory consciousness apprehending sound, and in the end, it is grounded in a yogic direct perception, realizing sound to be impermanent. No, this.
Tanda di la ta di wade la di tengi to rangi ten tayang tala tene rangi shacha kojur miluwe shenri de sheba ki ngoze ta sheba ki ngoze na sheba ki tsanyi to tende shi chagoro chidani sheba la de gyunzen tang tala tene hako koto beta lo shila tende to sungi doa di ene wade la ene che changpa de ene tsema kundu yi longde randun susum tali susum be tali tuntong be tai tuntong wa woje di chiksuna.
So next is the definition or meaning of the inferential cognition. Construing awareness that through depending on its basis, a correct reason is non-deceptive regarding its object of comprehension. So in simple way or form, inferential cognition is able to apprehend based on reason or sign. That is an inferential cognition. And then we have a quote from Compendium of Valid Cognition, saying that an inference for one's own sake is this: perceiving the object via a trimodal reason.
Chidane tanda sheba tala yan sheba te rimba mandawa sumi ngodo ngodob sheba ngodob sheba tape sheba ichi sheba ta ngodob sheba te na ngodob sheba korangi tatun de dikan yuwa di chi ta na chingene diki pecho tawo de ndamita tobe sheba tabu ene chik nipa de la ribon ra tobe ribon chen la tawa shi shibin de shirundu tobe sheba te ene kare tabi sheba, ichi sheba, ta tangde sheba di sumbu diya, ta ngodob sheba le di zamba kaptu kuran sheba kharan, tanda sheba sema taran di dhago dila, ngodob sheba dhago chawara. Tine tabi sheba zid, shedi samba la, ribon chen la dawa shi zid, pena nga zil, ta jiten la namgyuni tra de kyo, jiten la tra de pa, pena ribon chen la dawa jiti zamba la, ribon, nga zil dawa la ribon chen su, tine namgyuni lagoro. Odini to which topic yunzen la teni sungu ichi cheba se to sambala chik ichi be ta semala teni hako kone teni chesum ji tabi lungi ta la teni rangi shacha shinto kojo to be sheba ta bozen ta ta yunzen la teni eni hako e sheba de la eni ichi cheba odini teni sumba na jen teni sungshan.
And the classifications of the inferential cognition, there are three types. Inferential cognition based on empirical fact, inferential cognition based on popular convention, and inferential cognition based on trustworthy testimony. The first one, as the word says, based on empirical fact. Construing awareness that through depending on the correct evidence based on empirical fact is non-deceptive regarding its object of comprehension, a slightly hidden object. And the example is inferential cognition realizing that sound is impermanent because of being produced. The second one, inferential cognition based on popular convention. Popular convention meaning, commonly or widely kind of known. And again, the definition is construing awareness that through depending on correct evidence based on popular convention is non-deceptive regarding its object of comprehension, a language-based popular convention. And an example is inferential cognition realizing that the word moon can be used to refer to the rabbit bearer. So rabbit bearer is used, for moon because that is the popular convention, a popular epithet of the moon in ancient India. And then third, inferential cognition based on trustworthy testimony, construing awareness that through depending on the correct evidence based on trustworthy testimony is non-deceptive regarding its object of comprehension, a very hidden object. An example is inferential cognition realizes its object of comprehension, a very hidden independence on its region, a scripture that has passed the threefold analysis. So the reason that was used for the trustworthy testimony is a scriptural quotation which must pass the threefold analysis.
Dichi tanda di ta sheba de chidani kasanga mane nga ju digan la yang des rob ching la do tare tanda di gap so tanda ta yang ju khran di sal tu senare digi ngo ta digan la ta long jung gi long de zo tang ene ta di ene ta ngo da chidani chani da ngo yewa sum che des so gi ngo che ta di nge ya de ta di gap tu tela.
Although we earlier we went briefly of inferential cognition, but here, it's more kind of little bit more detail, more clarity, and what is important in this section is if you can to understand the definition and then classifications, if not, the scriptural quotations.
La so tene ta te niba de la ene cheshe de resha tanda cheshe de ka ta khasa tanda di sheba de la da mi ta por to pe sheba sema yulden ji khansal ta bo chuna sheba ngegen ji khansa te gi yu gen da mi ta por to pe sema ki semi yun ke ji chimanam ne cheshe te nge tanda Dingen line ta sheba damita porto be sheba yulden ji khasa tabu zumati damita bange be nge mita porto be khasa nge de ke yanjur ene yujin damita porto be damita bala mi be sema yulden ke ji niba di karche gerzene cheshe penata di nan ta na cheshe di nan ti ranten ji sema ngame tozin ton sema ngame tobji la tobe riba di cheshe ke ni karzen ngodo charudu tene te khung do na semanamdele suwan zin suwan zin chir kunzob ni mindo che somba tardi sidon yang ane kunzob lo la temba che shene che tenche gindi somba na jin ta di kap tu de la ne ta che chir che she do khande se tu dan do da di ge ne che she ge ngo di de ne sungudu de de chikshu.
The next subsequent cognition. Subsequent cognition can be explained by the following illustrations. Consider the case of someone who has valid inferential cognition, realizing that the sound is impermanent. In that person's mind stream, later moment of the continuum of valid cognition, observing that sound is impermanent are subsequent cognition. So, observing that the sound is impermanent, after having, realized the sound is impermanent through valid inferential cognition, there is subsequent cognition. And in the definition presented here is a cognition that realizes again by the force of previous valid cognition an object already realized by the earlier valid cognition that induced it. And then there's a quote from Exposition of Valid Cognition, where in which kind of it presents the sort of sources of the subsequent cognition and as well as its meaning, since it apprehends the apprehended, that conventional cognition is not accepted to be valid cognition.
Dice ta diwa de la ni cheshe de la cheshe gi yewa de la ya ngosum cheshe toba cheshe cheshe ni che ngosum cheshe ngosum cheshe la cheshe la ya pumjin mi she ke chi nyebal tabu wang ombo ngosum cheshe ta shensim shebe ngoshe ke chi nyebal tabu yingon cheshe ni la toba ta cheshe la ni ngosum tambe toba cheshe ta sheba ki tambe toba cheshe tigi ta onzi wambe ngosum chi tambe ngombo ngebe che ngeshel tabude ni ta toba ngosum chi tambe toba che she da pumba mi ta par to be sheba to dena somba na jinte ta ran shusha na di to pare temata.
When categorized, subsequent cognition has two types: perceptual subsequent cognition and conceptual subsequent cognition. Examples of the first are a subsequent perceptual sense consciousness, such as a second moment of an eye consciousness apprehending a pod, and a subsequent perceptual mental consciousness, such as the second moment of a clairvoyant perception knowing someone else's mind. Again, conceptual subsequent cognition is of two types. A conceptual subsequent cognition induced by perception, and a conceptual subsequent cognition induced by an inference. The example of the first is an ascertaining consciousness knowing blue, that is induced by a sense perception apprehending a blue. And the example of the second is an ascertaining consciousness knowing a pot to be impermanent, that is induced by valid inference realizing that a pot is impermanent.
Ta chitane tanda di kaso cheshe sede sambala ngosum ta cheshe de la wambo ngosum cheshe ta toba cheshe deni ta na je tozin tobe rigwa sede samba cheshe la ora tanda di kaso chitane sheba da ngosum de kejima tangbo de semare nipa ene semamare cheshe reze ta chitane yang shung nang la ene chik Geshe la dende yang choba chogore ta chik choyore ta dinma chik dozen to be ba na chesin be khap ma jab za tang te zambal yang chuje lang ne ta dende yore te ta kang tar jang thalam sa chen la su ngosum da cheso papa ta ke kechi ma tambo ni chema yel kechi ba ni pa de chema yin ba pang ba o je de zamba za chema mare se ho ngosum da kechi ma ngosum da she pa kechi ma ni pa de so chema ma de cheshe re ze ta de zo yang ne na ya
Um, so we see here, the types of subsequent cognition in kind of two perceptual and conceptual, and then further kind of the perceptual has two types. In general, what is important to understand here is the first moment of cognition is a valid cognition, and after that first moment, the later cognition is subsequent cognition. So that's a general understanding, although there is more kind of, it's open for the debate whether that strictly is a subsequent cognition or not. But in the exposition to the valid cognition text, it says that clearly the first cognition is the valid cognition, and then the following cognition of that would be, or that is a subsequent cognition.
어디지 다디는마 무슨 시행도 무슨 소라 무슨 다른 담에다 버도 베체시 일든지 컨설트 버쳐나스 변에 다른 에 샤바토 담에다 버도 베체시 일든지 컨설트 버쳐나스 디다 체시 일든지 컨설트 담에다 발라야 야네 양도 제베고네 콤디 때네 셈네 골라 소바 림친 큐비 tar damita pa tunji da mande par salor to be ngosumji seman chungwa yin la tunda tordu na tanda di ka su karla na chik cheshe cheba tela tene chik tenshe temba ta semne gula soba rimba chin chik thula ma yin par thula da mande par ene chik salor cheba chene tun toba tela ene ta chik ngosum se de chatu do odi
Next is direct perception. Direct perception can be explained by the way of the following illustration. Consider the case of someone who has subsequent cognition, realizing that sound is impermanent. Having thoroughly accustomed herself to sound being impermanent, by way of analyzing it again and again, finally, at the end of the gradual process of moving through the 9 stages of mental stabilization and so on, there arises a valid perception, realizing clearly that a sound is impermanent, unmixed with universal. That is yogic direct perception. So, in brief, what is being presented here is that a direct perception arises earlier to that, subsequent when you have a subsequent cognition, and then accustoming to that. Example here, the sound being impermanent, analyzing again and again using reason, and then finally, going through the 9 stages of mental abiding or stabilization, and then through that one kind of comes to the attaining of the direct perception.
무슨 세만 좋아라 아니 된 나중 무슨 많이 있는 순간도
Yogic direct perception.
단다 타마들 무슨
무슨 세만 일라스 무슨 세만 중단다 어디 시도
이런 것은 세마 중단 시월에 내중 것은 중단 세마 시월에
니가 뒤에는 무슨 세마인 되는 나중 무슨 마인 니가 이래서
you can apply to both direct perception and yogic direct perception as well.
So sensory direct perception, and then after 9 stages of stabilization, right?
다들 단데 고주에 대 광병 것은 내 고주 지내니 타마들아 내중 것을 내고 그래서 Yes, probably that is right.
dine mache, ta dine maane, ta tanda dikene, toba da total matru, toba tantal chi matrule ripate, ngosum jene, chi ngo da, ngo che te la ne, bena pomba zime mi she, ta di khasanga maane shu sara, ta di taran di to she, di kan la ne, rand, miki number sheba dal tembe, ngonshi, ngombo shiki, ngombo nyamdo, ngombo nyamdo mayi no she sumpa dine, tanda di shungda da, den tsenyi de da ani di tsenpa de chik shushana.
Definition of direct perception. We mentioned this in earlier part. A cognition that is unmistaken and free of conceptuality. For example, an eye consciousness apprehending a pot. And then a compendium of valid cognition auto commentary explains the meaning of a citation from the Abhidharma Sutra and states, quote, someone with eye consciousness cognizes blue but does not think, quote and unquote, this is blue. The phrase, quote unquote, someone with eye consciousness cognizes blue indicates that it is an unmistaken cognition. The phrase, quote and unquote, but does not think, this is blue, indicates that it is free of conceptuality. Thus, this quotation completely presents the definition of perception. Also, Dharmakirti's drop of reasoning says, quote unquote, direct perception is unmistaken and free of conceptuality.
Dice de tanda di dice tandi wa de line topa tanda ji matru riba se total shiba dikin de shi dina kyung tu dina di taran dina sumba na ji to be rando tanda wa to be shin ze tanda lo sola michawar datun diru dun zin bi shin ri tanda lo la cha jin ze tia to dina sumba na ji di shushana di taran dice tene tan dina la ene chidani di semba dina la yawa de ngosum de la yena wango yingo rari ngosum na jo ngosum che yawa de di sum yawa che di zu gi definition na ta na mi si shum go che dinge ni khasanga ma chik wangbo do re rang rang gi tumo ma yembe chik da gen wangbo su jen ba ze wangbo nga gen ni definition da tsanyi tan de zu do ji re sha.
Then it explains what does free of conceptuality means. That free of conceptuality does not mean being free of the substance of thought or free of thought in itself. It means being free of construing awareness that apprehends word and referent as suitable to be associated. Furthermore, since this cognition itself is not a construing awareness that apprehends word and referent as suitable to be associated, the manner in which it is free of conceptuality was explained earlier. Quote and unquote, unmistaken means being unmistaken with regard to the appearing object. The nature of the conceptuality that perception is free of, and the way in which conceptual cognition operates with linguistic reference and so on, was discussed when we explained how mind is categorized as either conceptual or non-conceptual in chapter 3. When categorized, there are 4 kinds of direct perceptions: sense perception, mental perception, reflexive awareness, and yogic perception. So if you understand one of the definition, the sense direct perception, then you can apply basically same to the remaining, and not so difficult to understand. Therefore, we won't do the reading of each definition of these classifications.
Mm. Tanda di shu sa ra wangwa yingwa ra ringo sum na ringo sum yawa di chitan na jo ta di wa de la tanda na jo ngo sum di ngo di sum do tene na yawa di chi na jo ngo sum do rangi tumo ma imbe ta gen dun ju shila sum re ji tingin zin la tene chung shi topa dan dra jin tenpe namba chen yi ji ngo sum de na jo ngo sum ji tsanyi de ye ne de la de chung kong jab ten ro zana tsema namde le de sumba de lung de shushana de mato me sumi de shukaya me do.
And at the end of page 274, the yogic direct perception, which is a little different than the earlier classification. Yogic direct perception is a mental perception bearing an image of the truth and free of conceptuality that arises in dependence on its own uncommon dominant condition, meditative concentration, that is a union of calm abiding and special insight. And then we have a quote from Exposition of Valid Cognition saying, the yogic cognition mentioned above arises from meditation. The nets of conceptions having been destroyed, it appears only clearly.
When the consciousness directly contacts the object without the sense, right?
Are you asking about yogic direct perception?
Yogic direct perception.
Mhm.
Consciousness itself contacts the object without sense organs.
nenjung sum la di sheba di yu da tegar taylor juge and di bar da wang bung sum mes na and la nenjung sum chibar wel nenjung sum da wel
Tatandana najong sumla rang timo mayimbe daken to juwe shila sundra ji tingin tsine shi ta shinen lan la tong gomba tela tene jungwe ne tokpa dan ndaje tempe namba chenji yi ngong sumda definition de la samlo chitana sa tati nanda kula kyo tati dumda.
So as the definition says, mental imperception bearing an image of truth and free of conceptuality that arises. So yogic direct perception arises. If it is a yogic direct perception, it must arise depending on uncommon dominant condition, which is meditative concentration. That is union of calm abiding and special insight. So according to the definition, if it is a yogic direct perception, it must be sort of consequences of calm abiding and special insight. And that is what yogic direct perception is.
I have a question regarding perceptual reflective awareness. Studying that and give an example of what I know it encompasses, like self-knowers, cognizers. And it's a cognition that arises because it illuminates itself, like the nature of consciousness. Can Geshe give us an example of how that operates?
Running some lady rang riba da di rang riba da di kanang choba di da hawa sa di bedo shani songro chiko running some chile ro kandi chiko re lega chana ro kandi chiko re lo do.
Let me see page I'm into. Rangi pego sera.
Some better on it is called lega chana ro
Tesco ngi tanda joti link up sungi di pete san ti chigo tanda ti chidani te pete tanda ti gala mi ngi ngala stas chi lap shan ti ngi chel ti chigo joti link up sun ti chigo.
So he said he will respond that later in the discussion session. He couldn't find the straightforward example in the text.
Chidani rangi se de zambala kan rang zimba la lagor. The did oshi chikita ti pete and chikti and ti to which re ngi shel ti chigo. Odi chidani ta tiringi tanda tanda di correct. Na jong sum ale tanda wa de la ti shti wa de thama de la de na la mange pa Na la mangi pati ki na la mangi pati ki ngo didi chik shusha na tara na la mangi pati ngo na la mangi pati ngo de chik shusha na digi to teni di ribata wote tsato tandina yoba na chen.
Just to kind of finish this in order, the last one is indeterminate perception. So Geshe says in from what is in the book. So just going to do the reading on page 275. Indeterminate perception. According to the Sotantrika tradition, the definition of a cognition that is an indeterminate perception is a cognition having a clear appearance of a unique particular that is its engaged object, but is unable to induce an ascertainment or determinate cognition of it, since it does not ascertain the unique particular that is its engaged object, even though it appears clearly. It is called indeterminate perception. So we'll take a break here.
Lola tato zimba tela tene lola ngeba te ta rangriki tsenshi to shagura. Ondene to ngombo zimbe mishi ki ngombo tonga te tsena ngombo zimbe mishi ki ngombo tonga te ki ene rangi ki ta sheba la nyamso nyo wa tela tene ene chik shebe na la ta chik ngeba te ene tela ene shuru. Odigi tanda tse chidani ta chik rangri ki pe ta chidani rangri korang chik dogen da mandogen ji long ta chik dogen yena dogen ji long da rikpa mandogen yena mandogen ji long da rikpa ta di choni ga yore ta mangpo chia jina ina tanda dina mangi dindi sawochi da shudan yasimido.
Tanda de
Rangri ki pe to pe koji josh ta.
Moranda ngi chidang rangri lena dida rangri ngusung ki pe lena. Chegwari rangri ngusung pe rangri pe tanda pe shira.
Rangri pe ro. Rangri to tanda de rangri to.
Here translated as your question, reflexive awareness, or the other more kind of traditional self-knower or self-cognizer. The example would be, say, eye consciousness apprehending a blue color. So eye consciousness, say, looking at the blue color. And when it sees a blue color, it has this knowledge that I saw a blue color. And that blue color, seeing of that blue color, sort of the next moment, then you have this recollection. You know, you are looking at your own mind, and then you have, yes, I saw that blue color. And that ascertainment or that thought that I saw blue color would be the example of reflexive awareness or a self-knower. Generally, when talking about reflexive awareness, depending on the school of thought, some school of thoughts assert and accept this, some doesn't, and those who assert and accept this has their own explanations of its existence, and those who don't has their own, again, reason of why this doesn't exist, or there's no such kind of reflexive awareness. No.
If you know you're seeing the blue color, it's not free of conceptuality.
The moran jodesh karzade ko ngombo tongso same chi yorwa 무슨 템바된 디 똑제 말와로도 똑바도 제요 말와로도 대간다 당기 디 코로나로 무슨 생이 코로나로 똑바도 제시 뭐 똑제는 샤로 디 똑바도 제 말로 똑바 말로도
똑바로 무슨 디 말에 단다디 컨딜라서 거기 가서 방법
단다 지워도 공부를 통수 삼에 줘로 언제 똑바로 와 똑제 말와로도
단다 단당에 간다 단다디 페드 갈래
나리
있잖아
베데
페나 ngombo 통기로 보통 텔라 때네 다디 ngom보레 삼데 소솔로라 다 태좀메 바 타제네 로 계시오라 다 원딘디질랑 원진 거 살다 간다
언제 딱 언제
어디
언제 똑바 말와로도 똑제 재면도 똑바 말와로도 지워도 언제 똑바 말와로도
또 똑바 말을 똑바시 책임이다 페나 다디게 랑리기 페도 랑리기 페레다
So again, he was saying, after seeing blue color, then having a thought that, this is a blue color. That thought is the illustration or example of the reflexive awareness. And it is not Dr. Marir Sungush.
또 다시 간다 그냥 쉐바 간다 랑리세드 좀 쉐바 간다 간게 덴디시 직 로라 네바테 직 템보 템바간라 직 태좀메바 다랑 임바지 작바질라 덴디실레 차기서 상거든
또 뭐라 간다 지워들시디 똑바다 대신으로 똑바다 제와 간대를
또바다 teachings correct
저도 드라리 생이나도 한국은 한국은 생이나 똑바다 간대 제를 똑바 말을
라링 무슨 생일라 지남 생인데 또바다 던지도 간디에나 되게도 다디 단다디
라링은 똑바다 제일 모티베이트 지남난 제도 그래서 똑바다 대신이라도 뭐 똑바다 간대 제게다 똑바 말을라고 제와데 그래도 그랬으면
똑바다 차사 말이다 다 간다냐 다 덴디도 지간라 디스 젤레 제바체다 다 덴디 또바 마잉에 또바 마리제 슈샤나 디도
So you're saying it was not conceptual, according to the definition, free of conceptual. But again, as he was saying, you can do further analysis or further kind of contemplation.
또바 컨데 지단에 단다 또바스 단다 응본 쯤바데 또바스 참아서 찾아서
So he was saying, how does it become conceptual?
Well, I was just looking at the definition.
I'm saying that just talk about the teaching is
지단에
talk about teaching is more talk about Marie Lawor. Talk about Lol can it help the Lawor. Yeah, I got you.
덴디도 오지죠 네 단다 페도데 단다 지단에 덴디도 오지 진이 슈샤바 이나 다또 덴디도 오지네 당한테 신주 제야다 이제
Talk about the teaching motivates in Namland. That talk about the table or teaching to what land to what on teaching goings at Senior Coronal done.
라링 무슨 기생이
Oh, talk about the teaching motivates in Namland.
아니 또 받는다지 뭐 주인선을 라링 무슨 기생이 라리경 레레레 레레레 어디지 다디스서 참에는 실라양 교딜 디간라 실시마양 디체고스 텐텐 믹스기 디슈다 스케미도 테오로나 사람
So yeah, Geshe said, other than that, he don't have any additional thing to say. He will bring more later.
Good.
She did, but I was just curious. So how does a human being have a direct perception of blue if they are not capable of knowing things not conceptual that are.
How does an infant see the color blue?
No, no.
They don't have a description of it, they just see it.
네, 저거당 뭐 차시 되지 건 저인 무슨 세마 컨데스 컨데스 기고 오래라서 컨데스 하고 오래서
네. 당은 숨 세만 간저 단다 추 코디딜라나 따라 제 가레 당은 좀 숨도 또봐 디 통화 따란디 다디게 타냐 셰나레 마셰나레 파타냐 랍 다직 디기 디 레즈네 랍셰나 마셰나 칸터장 콜라디 디 또봐 잠기 따라 디 무슨 디 차도라 지마치진 선이 나지 하고 올라다 당은 제 디나지 디기디 하고 디 타냐단 디 셰고르데나 디 통화 따란지 디 차사로 앞에나 가서 잘라 디 도지 싱잉 볼 도지
So direct perception, direct perception, a cognition that is unmistaken and free of conceptuality. So when we say we have a direct perception, simply able to kind of, or merely able to see something directly, Geshe was using an example of looking at the singing bowl, and that is the measure of having a direct perception. And you saw, singing bowl in your front directly, straightforwardly, regardless of, in spite of the detail or complexity of, a singing bowl. The direct perception is when you see it directly, or unmistaken and free of conceptuality. That is what direct perception is, or is considered as a direct perception.
It's free of designation.
Free of designation.
거기 단다 딜라오나지 단당 아주 디나라 같이 먹고 가래 미게 가서 소소 미게 무슨 강 통화 상마에다 무슨 차로라 딜라이네 저기 디게네 선이다 디차상 미스 하고 민도.
So when we say direct perception and seeing something that is unmistaken and free of conceptuality, what is what you are perceiving. What you are perceiving is what is in front of you, and for that you don't need to know sort of the definition of the object or all the details behind, but just simply seeing or merely the seeing itself is the direct perception. And can you ask? That they call it talk that main below.
네, 또 배다 다 급도 다른 직지 아마 잘 먹어.
So yeah,
또 많이 버세나 칼라오다 디티침 디스마르 파양. 엄마 심바 타와나 타칸타 그냥 딜라강 통화 다른래.
So in generally whatever you see directly in case of eye consciousness is the direct perception, and so no designation or free of conceptuality.
Is conceptuality kind of knowing just specific to humans, or do animals have it? Like do other sentient beings have conceptuality?
That's it.
똑바로 해줘라. 똑바로 해도 미적을 지어래. 심지어 벌레 똑바로 해도 열어래도.
다티 똑바로 좀 맞지다네. 다 주제 가서 삼로 땅 시간대 모두 배제 영상 말하고 똑바로 했다. 그래. 밀려 요원이지. 다이나 똑바데 심제 돈도다 되줄라야 똑바에 요래zel라 가버리셨다. 이나 다 콘졸라 야보다 독자다 된디게 요르데 이나고 똑바데 게 초초에서 되지 차고르다. 근데 레 삼삼도 주 근데 깨고라. 네, 다 심전 요zel라다 심전 된디기 즉 야도 원진 토겐 되줄라 요초사.
So conceptuality, saying depending on the animal, it can be in the animal which are more intelligent. They can have a conceptuality, thinking that the thought of this is right, this is wrong, or this is beneficial or not. The animal can have those
Chidang chadeni duha the chidang chadeni penet chige di chig paju di kesho le zama chig zine di keyo dan dini do yungdo. Tenzo la yang di yosare.
So animal like birds and dogs, when you communicate with them to bring something to go, because of the conceptual, maybe because of the conceptual thought, they can that understand and react. So they can have a conceptual thoughts or conceptuality. Any other questions? Yeah. Conceptual.
I'm still struggling.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this particular sentence is what kind of has me. However, the cognition that illuminates the previous cognition, inasmuch as it has the nature of illuminating itself, is established to be aware of itself reflexively and not by virtue of gaining experience by some other cognition.
Which, okay.
Yeah, page 274.
네.
That's a good
the level how let's one of the was the running some did what the longstone the loan to when you're a new server chive the niche longama server chive lotin rangrik bo duber gurgi sheba shengi no minus.
No, that and the dikaso and sheba tanda di tanda ranyo sheba de la ni ranyo rari da shenyo rari ni chigo res lagro. Tati nani ranyo da shenyo ni ranyo kora res shenyo mai no ranyo da shenyo ni kinani ranyo res de ditukor. Lo de rang riba tubar gyo sheba shenji nyo ni mai no. Tachik pena ngombozi be nyowa senare di yeni chik tati nyowa dela yana susu nyongore yana shenji nyongore zila ora ta rangi nyowa da shenji nyowa nani shenji nyowa mewa ka ta kanta tache ranyo da shenyo nani ranyo re se di sungor tadi.
Cognition that illuminates the previous cognition, in as much as it has the nature of illuminating itself, is established to be aware of reflexively and not by virtue of being experienced by some other cognition. So usually, when we talk about reflexive awareness, it deals or comes, experience, awareness by oneself and awareness by others. So, if you use the example of the earlier one, experience of consciousness apprehending a blue color, there is an experience by oneself and there's experience by others. Since it is not experienced by others, it must be self-experience or self-reflexive awareness. This is what is reflexive awareness. This is what it's saying here.
To me na, to me then was did topic to it and then the chat in
Yes. If there's no question, we will recite praise of the 12 acts of Buddha, and then followed by dedication prayer.
Is it okay? Dabge doje shaje reso do shenje medo doje bonjo seje lumbo taboro jebe go shaje jabo chola chaza hangi tamboro chanju doje ne sonam yeche sonye zonze tindire zeba yachen rowa ye gonjoro chola dage dobara lanamanduze tube doje ne lale bane alanje daje Rila zime alamu yuturabe lumzu jobaran de la chazalo. Ezebo ne traje lumbe zado dambe de sandan yeje gede tenjo ne chanjo rezo ngeze chaza. Shunu dobde mi singe de anga manga dane gyoza de kyo de namachen. Tache ne denda me baran de la chazalo. Chiden chudan dumbara chawa dan kana mato gwanjire sup. Kordan denze tabla kebaye gyatse gyongwaran zela chaza lo korwe chawa nyingbo meze ne kimne chonde kala shin chode namda chondo nyile nye rabdo gyongwaran zela chaza zumbe chancho droba gone ne nyeran zane damdo lodo kawa chenze zunde tache ne samden chonyen zela chaza toba mene beba tuyu je manganda ye chancho shin Yadro me yong bara sanje ne chanjo so paran zela chazalo tuje ndola nyodo sene ne wara na zela zone Shige kolo kone doja na te wa sun la go ze chazalo shige go wang ba za je ne mode damba to dan le komo jige yodo de nando to ba yule gyala chazalo se ba sumna be me yunde ge nyendo yoba chito chembo Lamien doa gunje rabje de demba ye baran de la chazal le lo je na jo la guje je sa jo chongge sa je sam chimien do je de be guje ne nyangen de ba de la chazal yanda ni do je ba me je ya ma o sen je so nam do je Tenye do ne rin se man do ne ku do je yin de la cha de le de be da bo chun de yen ze be su la do san de ba ye ke be do a kun je jo ba yan de je ni ge je dang zong ba ra yo ze ta ta di injin ma injin nan dong ro di ma do chi da ni nga zo di ta da mo lam de na re chi da ni nam ju ni mo lam na re ta da di ren kha san la chi da ni kyang ro mo che men je shabi men che nang go nang trup ne ta men je ta phagi la ko nga se ni shu sa re chi ka nga zo so ge jor kha ji ji to ba na te ke ni ngo wa se na te ki tmo che ju to kyang ro mo che ko ze tem ba ta ko ge ni chi shabi tanda menje ta te so chasan lamlo trumne ta chik sanra nyu to yo a yen sama yen tumo chem chuna ro na ode che chuna
Inji do dong maranda.
inji cholen der te chela
So,
tanda ngal shushan
including this prayer, whatever prayer that we recite, like you said, you can, in your prayers, keep the thought of His Holiness, although he did a successful knee treatment, but for his long life and for his success activities. So keep those in your prayers when you recite.
in English.
So we'll recite this in English. Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, with skillful means and compassion, you were born in the Shakya clan, unconquerable by others. You vanquish Mara's hordes. Your physical form replaced like a mountain of gold. To you, the king of Shakyas, I pay homage. You I shall praise, who first awakened the mind of enlightenment, then completed the accumulations of merit and wisdom, and now in this age, through the vast sway of your actions, have become the Lord and protector of living beings. Homage to you, who, having taught the gods, knew the time had come to tame the human world, and descending from the god realm like a giant elf, foresaw the family of your birth and entered the womb of Maya Devi. Homage to you, Prince of Shakyas, born after 10 months in an auspicious Lumbini grove, where Brahma and Indra revert you, your supreme marks, proving you were destined to be enlightened. Homage to you, lying among men, in all your youthful vigor, displaying your prowess in the games at Anga Magadha, where you triumphed over the proud contest, so that would stand as your rival. Homage to you to comply with the bodily convention and avoid all misdeeds, to queen and courteous, and by acting with such skillful means, so you rule the kingdom. Homage to you who saw that samsara is wholly futile, renounce the life of a householder, and traveling through the sky, warning yourself before they reach the stupa. Homage to you who intend on persevering till enlightened. For 6 years, practice austerities on the banks of the Niranjana, and taking diligence to its ultimate perfection, attain the supreme samadhi. Homage to you who seeking to make meaningful efforts made throughout the beginningless time, sat unmoving in the watchtower posture beneath the Bodhi tree in Magadha, and awaken into true Buddhahood, attaining perfect enlightenment. Homage to you who, in your compassion, gaze at once of our living beings, then turn the wheel of Dharma in sacred places like Varanasi, and establish disciples in the three vehicles. Homage to you who destroyed evil-minded opponents by defeating 6 teachers of the 3 Thikas, Devadatta and the rest, as well as the Maras in Varanasi. You were the mighty sage victorious in battle. Homage to you who performed great miracles in Shiravasti, unmatched in their splendor in all the 3 realms, and through the offerings made by gods, humans, and other beings, caused the teachings to prosper and increase. Homage to you who, to spare the lazy on the Dharma, left your body to the immortal and like of Vashra, and passed into parinirvana in the pure abode of Kushinagara. Homage to you to show that you had not in reality perished, and so that beings of the future could gain merit, emanated a wealth of relics, and caused your remains to be divided into 8 portions. Through the merit of briefly praising in this way the great acts of the Lord, who is master of the teachings, may the actions of all living beings come to equal those of the Sukhada himself.
Okay. Chanchu semchu rinpoche maje panama kenjuru je kewa nyamba meba yang kone kondo pewa risho kari rave kowe shinkam pendang dewa mali chungwe ne chiri sewa tenzin jas jabe side bardo tenjur je jaba bawe chidara jemba dan kondo sambo deyang deje Teta kunje jeso dalo je kewa dita damje rabdo ngo dizuma jebe kewa damje ye ngo kala ngaba deta jen kewe tsawa di kunjang dambo je rabdo ngo war ye in English.
May the spiritual Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish but increase more and more. In the land encircled by snow-wild mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit, those in your person cherish Tenzin also, lives remain samsara. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhatra too, so now do I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sorts of my merits for
Thank you.
Thank you.